All right, let's talk about something that I think everyone struggles with, making those huge, life altering decisions when the future feels like a total question mark. We're going to get into how you can find a little bit of clarity even when you're under a ton of pressure.
And that pressure, well, it feels like it's coming from everywhere these days, doesn't it? It's like we're all trying to find our way, but the old maps just don't work anymore. And that feeling can be pretty overwhelming.
I mean, this image here really just nails the feeling, right? On one side, you have taking action, which you know is going to sting in the short term. And on the other, you have doing nothing, which feels safe for a minute, but it often leads to that long term nagging regret. Does that tug of war feel familiar to you?
To really get a handle on this feeling, just think back for a second. The last time this many of us felt this completely adrift was probably March of 2020. Nobody had a clue what was coming next, and it felt like every single decision was just a shot in the dark.
And today, the pressure is coming from this kind of perfect storm of different forces. You've got rising unemployment because companies are totally restructuring around AI. You have geopolitical instability that's higher than it's been in decades. And then there's AI itself, which is making a lot of us question our own sense of purpose. It's a lot.
So, when all of this hits you at the exact same time, what's the most common, almost universal human reaction? Well, it's to do nothing at all. We just freeze.
But why does that happen? What is actually going on inside your brain that makes you feel so completely stuck? Let's get into the mechanics of it. So, our brains are wired with this really ancient survival system. It's the whole fight or flight response. It's designed to flood your body with adrenaline and get you ready to deal with a very real, very physical threat, like a predator jumping out of the bushes. But here's the catch. That ancient part of our brain can't really tell the difference between a tiger in the grass and a modern abstract threat. So, to your nervous system, your entire industry changing overnight, or the stock market taking a nosedive, that can trigger the exact same panic response. And there's a name for this. You've probably heard of it. Psychologists call it analysis paralysis. Basically, the more information you're trying to process, more news alerts, more data, more opinions from friends, the harder it becomes for your brain to actually make a decision. So you just freeze up. And we get really, really good at justifying this. We don't call it freezing, of course. We call it being patient. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just waiting for things to calm down. But what we're really doing is just choosing to wait. We're choosing inaction. Now, to break out of this cycle, we need to completely reframe the problem. And the key, the real secret, is understanding that there are two very, very different kinds of regret. And this really gets to the heart of it. The regret you feel from taking action, trying something and failing, yeah, it stings, but it's usually a pretty short-term pain. The regret from inaction, though, that's different. That's a dull ache that just grows over time. It's the one that haunts you. This image just illustrates it perfectly, doesn't it? The pain of a failed action is that sharp peak, but notice how it fades away pretty quickly. But the regret from a missed opportunity, that what if, that's the line that just gets heavier and heavier as time goes on. Okay, so how do we actually use this insight to make a tough decision in the moment? Well, there's this brilliantly simple mental tool for it, and it's called the 80-year-old test. And it comes from a now famous story about Jeff Bezos, way back in 1994. He had a great job, super secure, making a lot of money at a hedge fund, but he had this kind of crazy idea about selling books on this new thing called the internet. His boss basically told him he was nuts and to think about it for a couple days. So to make the call, Bezos didn't make a big spreadsheet with pros and cons. Instead, he projected himself way into the future, and he asked himself one simple, powerful question. When I'm 80, which decision will I regret more? And just like that, the answer became crystal clear. He knew that, at 80 years old, he wouldn't be thinking about that one time he tried to start a bookstore and it failed. But he knew, with absolute certainty, that he would regret never even trying in the first place. Now, this test is so effective for two main reasons. First, it yanks you out of your short-term panic brain and forces you to adopt a much, much longer perspective. And second, it instantly strips away all that temporary noise. What your colleagues might think, what it might do to your reputation right now. And it shows you what's actually going to matter in the grand scheme of your life. So, let's bring this all together. We've talked about the pressure, the paralysis, and the power of looking at regret in a new way. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? It's this. When the future is a total blur and the pressure is on, the thing that feels the safest, which is doing absolutely nothing, is actually the biggest risk you can possibly take. Your biggest risk is choosing inaction.
So I want you to think, right now, about your own life. Think about that side project you keep saying you're going to start. That career move that feels exciting but way too scary. That financial decision you've been putting off because you're waiting for the perfect moment.
Now, apply the test. Project yourself forward. When you're 80 years old, looking back on your life right now, what will you honestly regret more? Trying and failing, or never trying at all? The answer to that question, that's your path forward.